is a re-release of a podcast that was originally recorded in 2012, an interview with Titus Fuchs that lasted almost 3 hours. We have divided it into 2 parts to make it easier for you to listen to. This is part 1. All right, we're back, and we'll thank whoever's given us the crazy mic full of dead air feedback. But this is our 4th podcast, and tonight's show we are going to have on Titus Fuchs, which will be a great interview. But before
is that how that's pronounced?
I don't know.
I always thought it was Titus Fuchs.
I thought it was, Fuchs.
Yeah, me too. But pronounce it how you like.
Fuck.
Fucks it is.
And with Titus joining us, tonight's show is going to be largely focused on being a commissioner, the life of commissioner, how much it blows, and how much bad commissioners can screw up a good Fed. So with that said, let's jump right into some discussion about mistakes that commissioners make. Guys?
One of my pet peeves, I hate too many gimmick matches. If it's just a match with no heat, just a match on a weekly card, does it need to be a ladder match or a steel cage match or a dirty needle match, bash them over the head with a fluorescent light bulb? There's no heat behind it. The stipulations don't matter.
First of all, when I was a booker, I wish I would have thought about the dirty needle idea. That's fantastic. I'll save that. You make a good point there. Definitely, sometimes the gimmick match can be overused when booking. I know I did it a couple times myself. Perhaps maybe it's a crutch sometimes commissioners use when they think their players can't handle regular wrestling.
Yeah, I can see that, but it just irks me.
Oh, absolutely. For me, I have a couple things that irk me about commissioners, mostly when they don't seem to give a shit and just kind of show up, do heat, or do a card and vanish. Like they don't answer emails, they don't answer questions, they just kind of run the time, as it were, kind of just clock in, do the bare minimum, leave. Philly Fats was like that at times, and it was one of the things I disliked about his style. Outside of that, I don't like people who feel like they need to be extremely strict to show how powerful they are and how we should respect them and all that. You get a lot of that with lots of suspensions and things like that.
Another thing I hate is commissioners that want to role play with you, but then when you start out role playing them, they get mad and try to abuse their authority. I actually had that happen to me with Lars once.
Really?
Yeah. Back in CCW, somebody started an angle that Lars's secretary got knocked up by one of the wrestlers. So Lars upped it to the secretary was secretly his daughter. And then it was basically an impromptu role-playing match to see who knocked Lars's daughter up.
Can we just hold on a second? Jason, your mic is picking up the speaker again.
How is it? I haven't even done anything. Okay.
I'm telling you, I can see it. The blue box is lighting up.
Is it quiet again?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Don't let it happen again.
Go to the quarter.
Okay, so anyways, it basically turned into a role-playing contest to see who would be the father, and most of the guys just role-played it like, yeah, I banged her or whatever. But I actually played it like we had a secret relationship and whatever. So, and then I was the father. He kind of decided that. And it was really one of the first wrestler commish feuds I'd ever seen. This was back in probably 98. So, pretty long time ago. Scary. And I ended up getting too much heat with him, and he decided to suspend me. So I told him he could take his dumbass Fed, and I would go do my own thing. So I was in the CFL at the time, the Legends Fed. And so I think Sanity Clause was involved, and I ended up getting suspended from the whole site. So I guess I quit after that. It's not really a kitty quit, though, if I'm suspended from the whole site, though, right?
That's not a kitty quit.
But that's a mistake Lars made. But he was still early on as a commissioner, obviously. So, you live, you learn. But
And that decision was made pre-Crusher influence.
Yeah, it was kind of a Cremo decision, but Crusher wasn't there. So he always had a little strain of the cream in him.
What about you, Bryce? Do you have any thoughts on things commissioners do that you think is a mistake?
Well, I'm going to say the obvious, and no, it's not have Johnny Root in their Fed. I'm going to go with actually, if you are on a commish team, I'm not going to say if it's just a single commish. If there is a team of you and it's taking 3 days to get results done, then that's a problem to me. It totally, obviously everybody knows how it stalls a Fed. If one of the three of you who are supposed to judge a match knows you're going to have a busy weekend, give it to somebody else. All three of them, odds are not going to be super busy. So I mean, it's basic, but really can halt any momentum a federation has as far as RP or moving angles along goes.
I'd really honestly like to see fewer matches, fewer cards in general. And if somebody wants to start a match. It happens on wrestling all the time. But it doesn't have to necessarily be something that's constantly judged and booked and maintained artificially.
Now, wait a minute. They're already down to one card a week as it is. How fewer can they get?
Every 2 weeks, maybe. Between 3 different promotions going, I sometimes we've talked about it before. There's just it's card, result, finish, book, card, result, and there's almost not enough time to give a shit about the card.
I think that's the case.
Yeah, that seems fair now that I think about it. All right.
And the match posts, you put the most effort in them, but I think they're read by the fewest people. You're not getting any payoff on your efforts. Your opponent's reading them, the match judge, a few people, but something up on the board that you don't have to read 12 posts to get the story of, I think you're rewarded more.
That's probably spot on accurate, actually.
What do you guys think about commissioners that either A, want to make everybody happy, or B, don't want to hurt anybody's feelings?
That actually lines up with what my answer would be, which is I have no time for commissioners who manage their Fed to the lowest common denominator, which is to say they spend all their time worrying about people who are going to be butthurt no matter what they do. Some players are just whiners and crybabies, and commissioners who do everything they can to make sure their whiners and crybabies are happy are actually managing the game to its weakest player. I think that's stupid.
You mean the kind of people that make their decisions based on perception?
Yep.
What people will think or what people will say. And the whole time I always wonder, what people exactly are we talking about? How loud is this shadowy group of people who are they and why do we care? If they leave, they leave. We'll just go on without them.
Oh,
The people that get it.
It's one of the reasons I never worried about the whole conspiracy bitch fest about the King of the Douchebags last year. Because if you're not prepared to actually say it publicly and put your name on it, you don't really believe it. You just want to bitch.
That gets on my nerves now that you bring it back, because that's one of the things that makes FedEx different from Wrassle. Wrassle would never dream of doing anything like that. If you want a place that's run like that, where you know what's going to happen every time, you're never surprised, you're never angry, go play Wrassle Balls. Although, I'm sure Keeves is doing a great job.
I'm sure. No doubt. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that if you manage a game, and I think that there was definitely a period where Wrassle went through that, where they made rules that to me read like rules that were made to keep the bitchers happy. And I can't for the life of me imagine why you would make rules to do that.
I mean, some of them kind of made sense because there was a point where they were trying to appeal to people who were underage, so they had to kind of keep that in line. Although thinking back on it now, I'm wondering how many people actually were under 18 playing Wrassle.
A lot.
You would know, right?
And actually, I'm not, and it's not for the reasons you're probably thinking.
Of course,
But-
Jason chimes in now.
But when Haley was somewhat active, I would get PMs from random newcomers asking for Haley to be their girlfriend.
I remember that.
But now the best one was, I replied to one and said, "No, I'm sorry, I have a boyfriend and his name is Johnny Excess." And so I would get a PM to Excess saying, "You better stop dating Haley. She's all mine. You fuck."
Wait, this actually happened?
This happened on similar things like that have happened on multiple occasions.
You forwarded the PMs to me. I remember those.
And I basically kept this kid going for about, I would say 2 or 3 days maybe total. Until I had to let him down easy.
You're such a heartbreaker.
I know, I can't help it with my avatars. They're just so beautiful.
Fucking tease.
I sent him a copy of his avatar's most recent picture, and it's disturbing.
Shit, does she look like she got hit with a bag of motherfuckers?
Look, man, she's been going on it for a long time. What do you expect?
That's a rough life, let me tell you.
It sure was. I'm sure.
Is this, does anybody else have some thoughts on commissioners and things they do that are just a mistake, or do you want to move on and bring Titus on right now, guys?
I have one commish thing. I hate it when commissions convince fathers to turn on their out-of-character sons. I hate that.
They sound
I think it's
brilliant
an abuse
to me.
of power.
It sounds brilliant. More commissioners should do this. All right, well then let's.
I'll have to get into that story one day.
Yeah, we will. Let's go ahead and see if we can't pull Titus in. Let me dial him up here.
Nap time.
Okay, so we're joined now by Chris Bone, who many of you will know better as Titus Fuchs. Titus obviously retired recently, but has spent an excellent amount of time in both Wrassle and in Federation X since Wrassle's premature closing last fall. And we'd like to welcome to the show. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Sorry for all these issues getting me on.
No problem. Jordan, you want to get us started here and just delve into his time with Wrassle?
Sure. How did you get started in Wrassle?
Well, I used to be an e-fedder like years ago, and I was always looking for new e-feds to play in and stuff. And I just happened to find Wrassle in a search engine or something, and I went to Wrassle and put up this big, huge e-fed post that was, interacted with absolutely no one. Got told, doing it all wrong. And so I kind of left because I was stuck in my e-fed ways, so I kind of, left. But when e-feds got boring, I remembered Wrassle and I came back and tried it out, and well, the rest is history.
Now, to clarify, your first e-feds were through the internet?
Yeah.
So to date myself, my first version of e-fedding was a mail-in on the back of Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Wow.
And you got your updates as to how your character was doing and what was going on in the Fed in like a monthly newsletter.
Wow.
Nigga, you old.
It's true.
Damn old.
Yep.
Shit. Right, so to get back to Mr. Bone here, I'm going to keep calling you Mr. Bone.
Right.
What made you want to be a commissioner?
I don't know. I think because I did have an e-fed of my own at one point, and I always enjoyed that a lot more. I have always thought I'm a better commissioner than a player. I mean, I shouldn't really be saying that, but I've always thought I'd make a better commissioner than an actual player. I don't know, it's not for the power or anything, because I'd never really, used my power, if you know what I mean. It's just, I don't know, I like organizing shit and making new stuff and stuff like that,
Do you think your skill set's just more oriented toward, operating things, managing people, giving advice over playing?
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely, yeah.
I mean, it's a very different skill set, playing and commissioning, and honestly, not everybody that's good at one is good at the other. I mean, there are a lot of really good players that really were awful commissioners. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of awful commissioners, is it true that you were assistant to Dead Star in UC?
For a very brief time, yes, I was. I was his CIT when I first got my commissioner thingy. Yeah.
So he was the man to train you in the ways?
Yes. He, at first, yes.
What was that like?
I imagine it'd be a lot like me taking training pointers from Billy Hicks.
I don't know. I think the first task he set me on was counting heat, and that was it. Pretty much, I counted some heat, and that was it.
Does it actually take a lot of training to learn to count?
Yeah, it does. I mean, yeah, loads.
Hey, man, he sounds like a great teacher. All right, so who are your commissioning mentors in Wrassle? Who did you look up to?
I'd say definitely Jason Titman, because he was my first CIT. When I became a CIT, he was the one who took me, and I actually started to learn stuff. Yeah, definitely Jason Titman. Then Clive Windsor. Clive Windsor helped me a lot, and in FedX, Grayson helped me a lot. So I'd say, those three have, in different ways, they've all helped me out, and they've all been people I've, as you said, look up to.
Well, that's a very interesting group you have there, because I've been in all three of their feds at one point or another, and Jason Titman, who also runs Switchback, if you weren't aware of that, he's actually really good at how he books, I find. He's very good at catering to the heat.
Yeah.
And Clive is really good at just coming up with interesting ideas to get people posting.
Yeah, again, I never had the pleasure of being in his fed when he was a commissioner. But as an EC member, he was always giving me ideas and stuff. He was awesome to talk to. Okay,
so to pull it back from it back before you were a commissioner, when you were just a player, what were some of the problems in the feds you played in Wrassle that you thought you could do better or make or improve if you were in charge?
Laziness, for one. A lot of commissioners were really, really lazy. I'll blast out Nikki straight away. Kira Stonewall, is it, or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
There was a time when I was in UWF as Stoner Boy, and I was writing absolute dog shit, on purpose. I was writing matches and posts that had nothing to do with wrestling, nothing to do with anything at all. I think I was advertising a Stairmaster in one of my posts. And then she'd come out with these results and was like, oh, Stoner Boy was really good. He really moved the match forward. And it's like, I didn't do fuck all. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's fantastic. So that's an example of just where you could just do better. I mean, is it just laziness on the part of the commissioner, or was it laziness on the players as well?
I think it's a bit of both, but definitely a lot of commissioners were happy to just take a fed over that was obviously failing because, they've just replaced their commissioner, and they were happy to just let it coast along.
Mm-hmm.
And just keep going as it was. And, I didn't like that at all. It's like you've taken over the fed, put your mark on it and stuff, and none of them could be bothered, as I thought. And yeah,
I think that's a great point, Chris. I've played in too many feds to count. I've played enough alts that I've played under an awful lot of guys. And one of the things that stands out to me is even the ones that come in really hot and active for 2 weeks or a month, month 2 and month 3 tend to be where you get a sense for who you've got. And some commissioners come in and they really understand that it's a commitment to being a commissioner first. And the rest of them come in and are like, I'm such a good player and I've played so well, or I just thought I'd do this. And look, I have all these great ideas about what I didn't like in my Fed. But then it just becomes I show up, I gave you results, I booked your card, what more do you want?
Yeah, definitely.
A monkey can give me results. And sometimes based on the results I see, I suspect the monkey did.
So, to continue on with this topic, Chris, when you see a Fed that's full of really lazy workers, people that aren't really doing much on the boards, where do you think a commissioner should step in, or how should a commissioner step in to change that situation?
Well, there is only so much a commissioner can do, I think. But as long as the commissioner is giving the players tools, to play and to help them, then there's not much else I think a commissioner can do than that. It's up to the players to then take it and, use it. To use your analogy on monkeys, you can hand a monkey a tool, but, it's not going to fucking build you a house, is it? But that's as much as a commissioner can do. They've got to give them stuff to work with, to help them if they're struggling and stuff. Yeah.
Do you think that people sometimes put too much on the commissioner in terms of how a Fed succeeds or fails?
I don't. I think it's a 50-50. I think it's a 50-50. Right down the middle. The commissioner has to do his job, and then the players have to do their job. It's a whole collective thing on whether the Fed's failing, I think.
Right. You can't have a commissioner who's sitting there and thinking up RP events and things if no one jumps to what he's throwing out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. Okay, so when you first became a full-blown commissioner, what was your very first Fed?
TWF.
Okay, and
Wrassle.
what did you think of the town roster you had in that Fed?
Well, it was okay. It wasn't terrible. I mean, I turned it into a Fed that equaled the national at the time, so it can't have been that terrible. I had some good players.
How did you manage to rise it up to the next level?
Activity. There was tons of activity. I changed the way the heat was scored. I changed the way the matches were done, because I put, your heat affected your sim scores and stuff. I changed everything about the Fed. I gave them, staff members, instead of the generic bullshit characters, I gave them staff members with, stuff they could use, little quirks and stuff. I moved the Fed from out of the bog standard 10,000 seat arena for a regional Fed and put it in a basement of a strip club and stuff like that.
Man, that's definitely one of the things that used to irritate me about regionals, is that every regional I used to go to, because whenever Wrassle would come up, I'd go ahead and troll the regionals with Rude just because he's a good troll character to do that with. And everyone they were in, they had these huge, like, Madison Square Garden style arenas. I'm like, wait a minute, aren't you guys supposed to be on a shoestring budget?
Yeah, like 500 people had show up to the show in real life. Like,
I mean, shouldn't they be wrestling in a bingo hall or like a gym or something? I mean, that's
definitely, yeah.
I'll jump in and comment on that. Very few of the commissioners I saw in Wrassle understood that they were a regional. The number of times I saw one of them allow their champion to refer to that title as the World Championship made me laugh. And one of the few guys I think who really got it was Maverick. When he came back and they gave him CWA out in Calgary, the first thing he did was strip it all the way down to an abandoned bingo hall. And it wasn't even a bingo hall. I think at the time it was an abandoned bingo hall. And he said to him, if you guys work really hard, maybe I can get us in a school gym next month. Like he said to him, this is where you are. He did what very few guys did, which was he sold his Fed. as
Yeah.
opposed to worrying about selling his character as some superpowered guy who could make anything happen and have them in a dome stadium somewhere in 2 weeks. He went in and said, "This is where we're at as a company, and this is what I'm going to sell, and it's going to impact how you guys sell." And I think that's a great thing. Going to the basement of a strip club is ideal for a regional, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And all these changes you made, how are they received?
At first, I mean, on the boards at least, people were against it, and I think that's just because, someone's just come in to change it, and they were expecting me to be just like every other commissioner. I'm just going to change everything, and then in a month I'm going to go inactive again. And I think that's what they expected. And then I think when they realised that I wasn't going to be that commissioner, they took it really well. And as I said, TWF, I would have said was rivaling Show. I'd even talked to the Great Lotus, who, at the time was the Show RP champion. He just won the OWC, and he was actually talking about coming down to TWF. He was one of the most active players in the game at the time, and he was like, I'll come down to TWF. So, I mean, that says a lot, I think.
Absolutely.
It certainly does. So, you spent all this time in TWF. How did you get your promotion to Show, and were you reluctant to accept it?
At first, I was reluctant because I'd just built something with TWF, so I was a bit apprehensive about doing it. But Slick Powers, who'd been the TWF commissioner before me, he went up to Show, and he couldn't handle the talent, so to speak, and he quit. So they gave it to Chain Reaction. Yeah. And,
Jesus.
They wanted him to have a partner, which is probably wise, and he chose me as his partner up in Show. So I got promoted up to Show, and then lo and behold, 2 weeks later, Chain Reaction went inactive, and Show was mine.
So, is there a huge difference between handling talent in a regional or indie or what have you, and handling talent on the national level in terms of how you deal with their requests, how you deal with them when they have? Because just from where I'm coming from, I would imagine a national player has more expectations than a regional one would, and probably makes maybe more demands. How do you handle like the difference in player attitudes from regional level to national?
Well, I think the national players actually annoyed me more when they made the demands, because it's you're a national wrestler, you're supposed to be the best in this game, yet you're acting like a whiny little regional bitch. So that was my stance on it. It was like, you're supposed to be better than these guys. I expect better than you guys.
Name some.
Guys. Josh Arcanum, easily, straight up. Josh Arcanum was a whiny bitch.
You hear us laughing because we don't. As soon as you went down this road, we both knew we were going to ask you for names.
Yeah. So keep going, man. Keep going, Josh.
Moxie, who you guys know as Kitty. Jesus
Kitty
fucking Christ. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Wait, do you have a Moxie quit?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, tell us a Moxie quit story. I'm sure you have one.
You remember when you guys all left FedEx because it turned into a vagina hole?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that vagina hole was in Show before they all came to you, and basically me and Kansas Kid got rid of them all because I was annoyed. It all started because I was annoyed with Dice and Miranda. I can't even remember what it was that did, but I was annoyed by the way they were behaving. So I wrote this huge essay and stickied it on the Show seaboard, basically blasting them both and telling them, I want you to do better. I'm not accepting this shit. And Moxie PM'd me and told me I shouldn't have done that, and I shouldn't be allowed to do that, and I should show more respect, blah blah blah. And we got into an argument, and eventually we decided to, agree to disagree. And then Hare and Josh Arcanum, Tormentor. I don't know about Miranda. I don't know if Miranda quit with them, but Miranda was going inactive at the time. They all just left and just quit show and left because I was a big bad evil commissioner. So
to be fair, we're going to get to the outcome of that shortly, but that might have been your most brilliant move as a leader, because you effectively started a chain reaction that led to Federation X becoming Evolution XX, and show getting an influx of what might have been the greatest talent influx I've ever seen in a federation.
Yeah, looking back on it, that's right, yeah.
But let's not delve into that because we're going to get to that later on.
So to bring it back to show, when you first got there, did you make a lot of changes? What was your general reception like?
I think a lot of the people in show had already seen what I'd done in TWF, so I'd like to think that when I got there, they were happy about it. They seemed happy about it. They were, after having slick powers before, and they saw me coming, I think they were happy about it. I was a little more apprehensive to change stuff in show though, because it's a national, and it had a lot of history, and I didn't really want to change too much about it. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to think I got a good reception, and at least on the boards and everything, everybody responded to me and stuff. So yeah.
So you didn't have anybody that just did not want you there, or thought you should, give them everything?
No, not at first, no.
Oh, so that would come later?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not entirely sure how the show commissioning timeline went, but I do remember a man by the name of Victor Simmons took over show. Are you familiar with Victor Simmons?
Yeah, that's Adam Draven's character.
What do you think of Victor Simmons?
I never in his fed, never really paid attention to any of his feds he was in, so I honestly don't have an opinion.
Okay, so I guess you've never worked with Adam Draven either.
I've worked with Adam Draven, yes.
Oh, what did you think of that?
Well, Adam Draven, when I first came into the game as Stoner Boy, Adam Draven was the person that I loved to wind up, so much. I made him, I made him blow up on the boards because of some of the shit that I said to him. And yeah, that carried on going for quite a while, but then we sort of, we grew out of it, and yeah, I realized I can go deal with better people.
Right, okay, so while you're working with show, before the FedEx invasion, who were your favorite workers in show, or people you like, just people that maybe that you knew were reliable, that always performed well, things like that?
Kansas Kid, obviously.
We love the kid.
Yeah, I love the kid.
You love the kid, sir.
Everybody should love the kid. Anybody who doesn't is hereby banned from Federation X.
Yeah, fuck off.
Anyway, continue on.
The Great Lotus, he was there every day. He was doing stuff off card to make, get people involved. He was involved in everything. If someone posted, he'd get involved just to give them something to work with. I could always rely on him to show up. I don't think I ever had one no show or missed minimums or anything like that from him. He was, he was awesome the entire time. And this one might seem a bit controversial to you guys, but Dicey Zale, before you guys came, he was, he had a bad reputation, and I gave him a chance in show, and he did really, really well. He was dedicated to show.
Dice can be a worker. I've seen that. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Dice is definitely there.
I think this might be the first time Dice has gotten a compliment on this show.
Don't worry, I have plans to bash him later.
Oh, that's good. As long as you got that base covered.
Yep.
So, who are your least favorite?
Well, the Vagina Brigade that I mentioned earlier. All of them. They really annoyed me. Other than them, I didn't really have many problems. The main issue I had was with people who were coasting along like semi-active like the entire time, and then they'd go inactive one week, and I'd say, you know, you're close to being demoted, and then they'd be semi-active the next week, and there wasn't really enough talent in the regionals for me to chuck them down if they were just being semi-active. Whereas, you know, like years ago, if you were semi-active, you were gone.
Absolutely.
But I didn't have that option when I was the show commissioner. So those people sort of annoyed me because I wanted to demote them, but I really couldn't, because then I'd have like a roster of like 4 people. So
Well, here's something about that Clive Windsor showed me when he took over UC, because I'm sure you know, before Clive Windsor came, when Des was in charge, we had a shit ton of inactives in UC, like a ridiculous amount. Well, Clive Windsor booted most of them, and like every month he'd be checking us, and if we didn't reach a certain minimum, we were gone. And he outright told us if we had a Fed of 3 people, he'd run a Fed of 3 people.
I certainly considered it. I really certainly considered it, but it was, yeah, it was just the players weren't the players that he would have had in UCE at the time. I think
No.
I'd done the same thing if I was in, you know, in the same position as Clive was at that time. I would have probably done the same thing.
Yeah, keep in mind, Jordan, that even just in that gap of time between Clive's run in UCE and Titus's run in show, the landscape of Wrassle changed substantially.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Wrassle didn't have you anymore. It didn't have Chance. It didn't have Eve. I mean, we can think even just in that time period, how many guys left and came to play in Federation X, and how many guys just left. There was
You
a
have
big
good point there.
there's a big change in the options.
So I'm going to go ahead and bring up a little more controversial topic. Titus, what do you think about the Executive Committee, also known as the EC?
Right.
Burn your bridges. Do it.
Fucking, that's what I'm thinking about. Is like,
Dude, just say what's on your mind, man.
well, the EC. I mean, I'm sure they did do stuff. Ice Hog, you know, he was the guy who did the same. But other than Clive Windsor, I believe Stuntman was doing stuff, like he was the player rep. I never dealt with him or anything, but I believe he was doing stuff. Clive Windsor was running the show. The rest of them, like, what the fuck were they doing there? Like, really, like they had no reason to be there that I could see. If I wanted to do something, I went to Clive. Clive okayed it. He'd say, I've got to talk to the other guys, but I think he just went away and thought about it and came back and told me. Yeah, they just didn't seem to do shit unless there was someone to punish or something. Then suddenly they'd all come out and give their 2 cents on punishing him, and then they'd fuck off again and disappear.
When you were running show, was Keebs involved with them? Because I don't know a lot about the EC structure and who's on. I mean, I know a few people. Like I know Clive was on it, and I certainly know Philly and Colt. But the very few times I've seen input from Keebs, especially from the let's run an event or I have an idea how to make an event better, he seemed like he spent time thinking about how to improve the game on a micro and a macro scale. So I certainly, from the few glimpses I've had of him, consider him a positive influence on the game from that standpoint. But I don't know if he was EC or even if he was doing that at the time in which you're talking about.
No, I never even saw Keebs at all. So, no.
All right.
So I know that the commissioners in the executive committee had a forum that was just for them. Can you think of any interesting blow-ups or fights or anything that happened on there, or did you pay attention to that at all?
Yeah, I actually got, you know, nearly threatened to be sacked, as it were, when I was TWF commissioner.
What happened?
What'd you do?
Yeah, what happened?
Well, basically, I'd come into TWF. Well, actually, sorry, before I'd got TWF, I'd been moved to Nikki as her CIT, and she was the complete opposite of Jason Titman, and she really, really pissed me off. So when I got TWF, my aim was to kill UWF, sorry. My aim was to just fucking destroy it and make it look like a shithole. So as soon as the time came where you could sign players, I'd sign them all. So she had no one to sign, and there was this one guy who'd he was a fucking nobody. He was posting at the time in CWA, but he hadn't qualified or something. Like he hadn't been put on the promotion list. And there was like three people in CWA at the time, and this guy was posting, and he messaged me. He says, you know, I want to be in a regional. I've had enough of being in this Fed, so I promoted him. And then I believe Nicky complained to Clive, and you know, obviously Clive went crazy because I'd gone against the rules and everything like that, and so there was loads of, you know, shit towards me because I'd gone against the rules and not stuck within the red tape and stuff. So yeah.
So you were poaching recruits from Nicky.
Yeah, pretty much.
What a dick. No, we like it. We like it.
That's good leadership.
Speaking of CWA, they turned into a trainer fed where everybody that joined went to CWA first, and it was up to Jason Tittman and Spinner to train everybody. And I know Tittman went on to do something else, so Spinner was training everybody. What did you think of that as a concept, and did you see anything in terms of it working as relation to how things were before? Because you were around before CWA was like that too. Yeah.
When Spinner took over, was turning it into a training fed, it actually got done. The concept worked, you know, like training people and stuff. It really, really worked, and it was good. But obviously it's a lot of work, and when Spinner stopped doing it and a new commissioner came in, they didn't do the work, and it became just another Fed, but a really shit one. Basically.
Yeah, because no one knows what they're doing, of course, and no one's showing them.
Even at one point, I created a character, a brand new character. No one knew it was me, and I went in there, and I can't remember who the commissioner was at the time, but I just posted absolute shit. You know, I posted a shit post, and no one said anything to me. No one gave me an advice. No one did anything for me. I mean, I used a fake email address and everything so that they wouldn't know it was me. But no one said anything. No one gave me any pointers or anything like that. So it's fucking pointless in the end, really.
Right. Now, with regards to CWA, can you think of anybody that's got their start there that maybe you promoted or someone else promoted that would go on to become somebody we know today?
Romulus. But again,
really?
I don't think he was trained in CWA. I think he got up to the regionals in TWF with Billy Hicks, and that's where Romulus started to learn the game. And yeah, then I brought him up to show just before you guys came, because I thought I could develop him better. But other than that, I can't think of anybody. No one that's not been an alt of someone else, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying there.
I think Romulus also came up with the right attitude. I remember when I went really hard at him for making it rain blood, and I think he sent you a PM saying, you know, what do I need to do because I'm really getting hammered here? And I said to you, tell him to get in touch with me. I'm happy to tell him or share my thoughts on what he could do to improve. And the first thing I said to him was, get rid of the idea that you're making it rain blood, or stand firm in it and just, but you can't be in the middle. If you let us sink our teeth in and make fun of you for this, you'll never live it down. And to his credit, he didn't go away and go, those guys were just being jerks to me. He actually asked the question, right? How do I get these guys to play with me? How do I do better so that they want to be in feuds or feds or angles with me and not just making fun of me? And then he took the information, the feedback. He traded like 5 or 6 PMs with me. I thought that was both to his credit and to your credit that you were in a position to say to him, rather than bitching and moaning, have a conversation. These guys know what they're doing.
More people should do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to get off the topic of commission just for a second, Hank Hooligan did a British accent last show. What do you think about that, Chris?
I want to stab him in the fucking face.
What? It wasn't spot on?
No, it was awful, right? Considering he's Hank Hooligan and he's from Leeds, and he was doing a Cockney accent, and Leeds and London, which is where the Cockney accent's from, are opposite ends of the country. And they sound nothing. I live like 30 miles away from Leeds. So I sound more like a person from Leeds than a Cockney does. But the worst thing was when he says, I tried to make his accent more guttural, like a Geordie, and all Geordies are in Leeds, and I just wanted to kill him. It's like, Geordies are in Newcastle, for fuck's sake. They all sound like cartoon characters. Like...
That's so true.
That's amazing. All right, so I'm going to wrap up my end with some word association. You ready?
Okay.
Victor Simmons.
Anal penetration.
Tipsies. All right, Alan Scott.
Alan Scott, awesome.
The Barroom Brawl.
A lot of work.
Wait, didn't you compete in that once?
Ah, fuck you.
Oh wait, yeah, it's true. You no-showed against me.
No, I got disqualified.
King of Wrestling.
Awesome. Really awesome. I'm going to say the same word. Lots of talent. Yeah, that's better. Lots of talent.
Are you going to be... Do you want any kind of involvement in that event, or did you want to do any kind of judging or anything?
I'd be happy to judge if you need me. Yeah, that won't be a problem.
I think we'd be happy to have you come in and add your voice to the judging. Judging for the King of Wrestling is a high demand. It takes a lot out of people, so having somebody with your experience come back and contribute would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It really is an intense event, and I'm telling you now, no matter how much time you put into someone's match, you're going to have some rage, so...
Oh, and I was in the last one.
Oh, really?
I actually participated in the last one, yeah.
Wasn't the last one when Kitty went and was complaining about other Jeffs judging?
I don't know. I'm sure Kitty started the groundswell complaint about Geno and I swerving everybody at the end, though.
Right, okay. So back to the word association. Anal beads.
What? Anal beads. Creamer.
Stuntman Colt Calhoun.
Funny.
Okay. Benny Blair.
Awesome. Like, truly awesome. God.
All right. Best ever.
Best ever. Ugh. I'm gonna have to feed his ego and say Geno, really. Genocide. Like, I've never seen anyone better.
Okay.
That's a good answer.
It is. Worst ever.
What? Oh, Jesus, I could think of a million. The very, very worst is Kitty, probably just because of his attitude. His attitude is shit.
Wait, are you saying
awesome?
Are you saying
Sorry?
Kitty is worse than Cremo?
Yeah. I think Kitty should actually have the nickname of Creamer because he's way worse.
I can endorse that answer. It gets my full support.
Damn. Man, I hope Kitty doesn't listen to this. I think he might kill himself.
I hope he
Fuck him if
does.
Damn. That's fucked up. I like it. All right. One more, and I'm going to pass you over to Jeff. Did you see the Avengers movie?
I haven't yet, no.
Dude, you got to go see it.
I know my son wants to see it, but
It's pretty good.
To it.
All right. Well, that's all I've got. I'm going to pass you over to Jeff, and thank you for go ahead and listen to me rant and rave.
I'm going to pick it up and move us forward. We have a great discussion point for what happened kind of in that period when we came to show, but I think we're going to leave that for Jason to have that conversation with you and just jump right over to the point last fall when everybody logged in on, I can't even remember, was it a Friday or a Saturday? And and I went onto my email and found out that my Extreme account had been refunded. And I'll tell you guys, honestly, my first reaction was, did Bernd find out I came back to play and is he kicking me out of Wrassle?
I thought that at first when that happened. I was like, shit, are they just, getting rid of everyone?
Yeah. But we logged in and we found out it was closed. And that kind of opened a whole new avenue for you because our first opening discussion, and we moved really quickly and got really active in making it work, was, do you want to bring show to Federation X? Why don't you talk a little bit about how that went down for you and what that process, that decision making was like?
It was really good, actually. I remember being sat at my computer like all the time, like when that was happening. Like, yeah, it was really cool. I was really excited about everything that was planned. I mean, Wrassle had just died, but you know, it was like obviously something better is going to come out of this. So I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the whole thing.
The early period for you must have been a bit of a change, especially after hearing you talk about how you felt the EC were pretty much hands off.
Yeah.
Because you came to Federation X, and it wasn't like it was just, say, my voice that was hands on. Everybody was hands on.
Yeah, it took black and white. Yeah.
If you deal with the power base, whether you're on it or whether you're a commissioner or whether you're a player, you know, there's kind of a very active role that's taken by the guys who are involved. What was that like for you?
As I said, it was black and white in comparison to the EC. It was completely different. I wasn't just dealing with one guy. I was getting a lot of input from everybody. Yeah, much better. Yeah, a bigger improvement, I thought.
Now,
awesome.
Now, having said that, it's pretty easy going when guys like in the EC are very hands off. Hey, it's your Fed, we're not getting involved unless there's a complaint, effectively. Was it more difficult to get show running and to deal with the fact that we had our nose in what was going on constantly?
Not at all. Not at all. There was things in show that I couldn't do. And here it just seemed as though I had no limits.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when I switched to the full RP Fed, and I actually sent you a message, you know, asking if it was okay, I kind of knew that it would be okay, but you know, I sent it anyway. But yeah, it was I was allowed to just do what I wanted, and I always had to answer to someone in Wrassle.
Yeah.
Whereas here, I didn't feel as I have to.
I was hoping that we would get a chance to talk about that, because frankly, that was a really bold move.
Yeah.
And I think the answer I sent back to you was, it's your Fed. Meaning, you know, sink or swim by whatever you decide. And if you can make this work, more power to you. How do you feel the reception was when you made that change? Because it was a pretty drastic change.
It was. I mean, if you look at show now, it just doesn't seem to have worked. I think people look at role play matches as though it's got to be a big competition. You've got to write a best-selling novel to win a RP match, when it doesn't have to be like that. All you've got to do is have, you know, some good action, you know, sell the characters and the events well, move stuff forward, and you know, that's stuff that you should be doing anyway, you know. But I don't think enough people look at it like that.
That's fair. You know, I gear up for them when I see them, and I burn out on them because, and that's not anybody's fault but mine. I approach them all like it's the King of Wrestling finals.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like that.
I agree.
I don't think.
No, you're right. It doesn't have to be, and it probably goes easier. Do you feel like, you know, when you were still launching it and you were really vested in the Fed, do you feel like it was going to be okay, and then it took kind of a downward turn as you disengaged and kind of lost your steam on it? Or do you think that it just wasn't well received because of the stigma attached with constant role play matches?
I think a bit of both. I think I was kind of hoping that I'd have liked to have seen what happened if sponsor wars didn't just happen right in the middle of it.
I think that's fair.
If I'd have done it a month earlier, maybe it might have worked out differently.
Right.
But, yeah.
Sponsor wars is a big challenge, and it can disrupt a lot. And this is the first time we ever had to tackle it with multiple Feds. How was that experience for you?
Well, draining but awesome at the same time. It's a really good event. I think it's sort of similar to Stable Wars, but it's better. I like the whole draft concept of it, and it's really good. It's a really good event, but yeah, for the first time, it's like, it was really draining sometimes.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's easily the most active month of the year,
Yeah.
and that activity is all pointed. It all has a purpose. So there's a lot to follow and a lot to pay attention to. It's definitely having competed in a couple of stable wars. I liked the format. The flaw I saw was it's too easy for people to not be included if they can't be sucked into a stable. And the idea, I went through enough of them to watch guys add guys to their stable to get the points and then swerve them and drop them from it at the end.
Yeah.
There just seemed to be something missing from the structure of Stable Wars. So when we built Sponsor Wars, we were really looking for a very inclusive process, and the idea of drafting and putting teams together, and then later Geno adding, hey, how about we draft the title shots as well, really added some challenge. It really matters who your captain is.
Yeah, definitely.
And having said that, your captain, I was under the impression that we could count on the Boner Force to make their captain Kitty quit. What happened?
Well, it started that way. Like we were actually planning to do that, and then Benny sort of didn't get as active as we thought he would. Max was doing his own thing. I was not as active as I should have been during that event, and well, Kansas Kid's the Kansas Kid. He was just
exactly.
You know what I mean? But the plan was to just completely fuck that shit up. Like we wanted to like earn a ton of points and then swerve dice right at the end, but apparently that wasn't allowed. So yeah,
it would have been hilarious. And we have talks every year about whether or not we can build a mechanism to allow swerving into Sponsor Wars, and so far we've just never come up with a system that we think would work, which is unfortunate because you do see, especially in this year, the opportunity. And you guys were really close. I mean, for a while, you guys were in first place.
Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys really, I think, shocked a bunch of people. So this was your first run through a lot of the things that we do in Federation X, and you got exposed to some players that you maybe haven't seen before. Can you think of one that you just hadn't had exposure to before that you just now look back and go, man, I wish that guy had been available to me in Wrassle the whole time?
Strife.
Oh, yeah.
Luna. Yeah. I mean, everybody would want him, I think.
Yeah.
He was awesome. There's nothing else I can really say about him that hasn't already been said.
He's definitely a favorite, I think, of everybody on the show.
Yeah, definitely. He deserves it as well, I think.
On the topic of Strife, I just want to ask this one question. Do either of you guys think that Strife is the greatest player to ever touch this game?
No.
Yeah, he's damn good, but I think, yeah, I will stick by Geno. I think Geno has the edge.
Strife makes my top 5. One of the things that makes a guy, for me, the greatest player to ever touch the game is that I don't go through prolonged absences of his from the game. And Strife is a guy who disappears for months and months at a time. There's something to be said for being a guy that continuity and feds can be built around. And there are a couple other guys who role play on Strife's level and add that other element to the game as well.
So it's because Strife isn't always there.
That takes him out of the running. I'm not saying he would instantly be it for me. I'm just saying that takes him out of the running because I look at a guy like Geno and think in a heads-up match, Geno can beat Strife. Not that he always will. Strife will certainly win his share, but Geno can beat him. And Geno is the type of guy that will, he'll play for 2 years straight and let you build an entire fed around him. And that has real value to me when I look at what they bring to the game, what they add to the game.
Well, the only reason I mentioned Strife in this brief discussion was that in terms of ability, he's one of the most complete players that I've seen. I mean, he can do comedy, he can do match action, he can be a heel, he can be a face, he's good at every aspect. And sometimes he sells characters better than you can when it's your own character.
I agree.
Yeah, same.
Absolutely. He's awesome.
One thing I mean, I don't know if it was just this stint, if you will, but he didn't seem to have the entire fed surrounding him like Geno could, if you know what I mean.
I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If Geno decides that his angle is going to be the most important angle in the Fed, 3 days later, he's not the one moving the angle. Every other person in the Fed has found a piece of it. And that didn't happen for Volker. Although it worked for me because I like Strife so much that as soon as he made Volker and suggested a fan club, I had Alan all over that.
Yeah, I remember that.
But he definitely goes through periods where he just hasn't engaged or hasn't pulled out of the other players their excitement for what he's doing the way that I've watched Geno do time and time again.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair statement.
All right, we'll continue on. That's one to throw out there.
Absolutely. It's always good to have a talk about Strife. And hey, let me throw this in before we leave. Strife is actually my favorite of his characters. I know that he doesn't always feel he gets over the best with Strife. He certainly likes the neoprene character, and he certainly enjoyed playing Kira. But I like gimpy, one-legged, emotionally challenged, potentially suicidal Rory Airedale. I think it's a good character. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's get back to talking a little bit about coming here and what it's meant for you. What would you change
About what I've done?
about what you've done since you came, or about Federation X and the way that it works? What would you change?
I think right now we have too many feds for the players. I think we should have a choice, and cut it down to 2 feds.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the player base we have right now, 3 feds isn't going to sustain it. And I noticed myself when I was trying to book, I was always, for the players' sake more than anything, I was always trying to avoid booking them as well as them being booked on the other 2 shows and stuff.
Right.
Which hurt me a little bit, I think. Yeah, because I should have just gone out and booked them anyway, and I was always trying to avoid that. Yeah, I don't think we've got the players to sustain 3 feds right now.
I'd agree with that. Although I've been pleased with some of the guys we've seen show up in the last 2 weeks, so maybe a few more of those, and we'll see some big pluses.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of returns show up in the last few weeks. Our friend Johnny Rude being one of them.
Yeah.
His brother Jake Price.
Yeah.
And as of early wee hours of this morning, Diggsy Brown.
Oh, I read his post earlier. Yeah.
He's talented, let me tell you. If Diggsy, like Strife, was more active over the last 5 years, he would be in my top 5. I'm a big mark for Diggsy. I know how talented he is. So if it was up to you, if we turned it over tomorrow and said to you, Chris, you figure out how we're going to go from 3 feds to 2, what would you do?
Not as being a dickhead or anything, but I'd close NECW. And that's mainly because Creamer isn't there right now. He's busy with stuff elsewhere right now. I don't think he has the time to put into the Fed as much as he would probably like to. So it would be it would be the smart choice, I think, the logical choice to close down NECW until he can get back on his feet and get back to putting as much in as he used to.
Right. If we go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, I've been looking at an ECW actually because I've been primarily posting Evo X, but I kind of glance at Show and NECW when I can. And between Show and NECW, Show at least has some people that don't post anywhere else, like Lacuna and what have you. NECW doesn't seem to have anything.
All the people that did go to NECW all seem to have gone inactive now. When he first opened up, he had a little group of players who were dedicated to NECW, and that was good for him, and now they've all gone. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. You're a guy who had Mountain in both Show and Wrassle, and then again in Show and Federation X. He's a guy for me that's a bit of an enigma because I see the ability to be active and really engage when he wants to, but he's been that guy that if it was 5 years ago and he was in a national, you'd have sent him down for his activity in the last couple of months. Do you have any thoughts on where he's at or what his struggles are since he's come to Federation X?
Well, I think at first he was a bit I mean, I know when you guys all invaded, he was a bit daunted by it. He was, like, whoa, what the hell's going on? I think he was the same when he came to Federation X, when everything was like hectic around him, and he's not as active as everyone else, so it was a bit hard for him to keep up.
Right.
But when he did try to, I mean, he got into a feud with you, with Alan Scott, didn't he? I think he did really, really well. I mean, he
did.
Made some mistakes, but he did do really well, and he really went for it. But now he's gone. He went to NECW, and he seems to have fallen into the inactive slot, like all the rest of the people who went to NECW.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. Mountain's a good player. I mean, yeah, if he could get more active, he'd be a good player. Yeah, definitely.
I can definitely vouch for Mountain's ability, because I had came back to show briefly with Brute Bernard just to basically dick around and what have you, and also because I think it was Victor at the time maybe was running and wanted a little help, so I was there, and Mountain was one of the first people I had a feud with, and the interesting thing I thought about it was that while I was doing basic Johnny Root shit to him, he was reacting very differently than most people do, and like he didn't know how to handle being put in situations that were outside of the norm. And so a couple of times I messaged him and I said, okay, I know this stuff seems kind of brutal, seems kind of out there, but I mean, if you need me to tone it down, I can. If you need help figuring out what to do when I do this, let me know. The only other problem I could see with him is that he has this supporting cast of brothers. I'm not sure if he's used them recently, that they're all as big as he is, but they're all like judges and things like that. And it just seems out of tone for what he's going for with Mountain. So
he's related to Stuntman or something as well, isn't he?
Yes.
Something like that. He's related somewhere to him, and yeah.
The challenge I think he ran into, or that I saw at least a little bit on the boards, especially when it showed up in the OC on the admin boards, is in going into a feud with those of us who went to show and then came back. He decided to run into a feud effectively with the good guys, who might be, the most difficult stable to feud with of all time. And the reason is we're the bad guys, and what we do really, really well is sell that you're the bad guy. And I think that was a real challenge for him. I don't think he could get his head around how we suggested fans wouldn't be okay with their face, their hero, doing things the way that, I mean, he was effectively acting like Stone Cold Steve Austin in certain scenarios, picking the fight before it could be picked. Only then we would go on and 6 or 7 of us would go on and be like, well, he must be a heel. Look what he did. He attacked us first. Yeah. And he had a real challenge, I think, because I saw a few comments on the admin board where he would say to people, thanks for selling me as a face. And I felt a little bad for him, but I also laughed at him a little bit because, if you want me to sell you as a face, don't attack Alan when he's not picking a fight with you. Don't get assigned to be his tag team partner and refuse to fight and make him fight 2-on-1 matches. Like that's heel action.
It is, yeah.
And I'm going to call you on it as Alan because that's what Alan would do, and I've got to sell my character. And I think Ryan did it really well, and Stan did it brilliantly well, and Geno drove the point home, and XS. And how do you get out from under that many guys saying that you're a heel when you're not playing a heel? And I think that daunted him.
It would be a challenge for a lot of people, though. I think, I don't think, particularly with how the good guy angle works, one person, unless they were really good and really understood it, could go up against that many just sheer talented people with this very challenging angle to back them up.
Absolutely.
You would need a group. It would have to be a stable versus stable situation.
And it couldn't be the deck because that was just funny.
So
they had no chance. Even Randy said to me when he wasn't with the good guys as Marlowe and he was playing and we were doing the good guys, that it was a nightmare for him to deal with because all of our scheming and heelness took place off the camera. And we were very careful about that. And on the camera, we played the good guys and really, really put him in a situation where he's like, I can't go heel on you because I'm not a heel, but going face on you doesn't work because then nothing gets done. It's tough. It's a tough circumstance. So I think that was one of the challenges that he ran up against, and I certainly would like to see him come back and get active again, and maybe find some other challenges. I think he would find better angles if he sought out guys that maybe weren't in a position to call him a heel all the time. I think Mountain is a good character that just was, I think, challenged as a player a lot by that feud.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so as we move towards our more controversial topics, let's ask that one last question. Have we seen the end of Titus?
No, not all. I was judging in the show this week. I think with the 2 little notable exceptions, I've been doing this like non-stop for 2 years. And I think it just got to the point where I've run out of ideas. I just need a break. I just need to sit back, chill out, and then, maybe come back when I'm fresh, or something like that. I don't think you've seen the end at all. I enjoy doing it too much.
Great.
I'm just in that sort of place right now.
Hey, listen, we were in that sort of place, and then we said, let's go to show.
So do you think Billy Hicks is doing a good job?
Yeah. I mean, say what you like about Dice as a person, as a player, whatever. Dice is a good commissioner. He just needs a chance. Just give him the chance, let him run with it. He's a good commissioner. He'll do a good job.
Yeah, before we leave that, I know that you dropped onto the Powerbase forums to support something I suggested. How do you feel about the idea that with these promotions that we're working on that angle, the idea that a new promoter should mean a new promotion, that show is yours, and that Dice should be heavily encouraged to brand his own promotion and run with something completely unique?
I completely agree with that. As you say, it works with the angle. Back in the old days when a promoter went out of business, he didn't sell it to someone else. Someone else bought it and put it into their promotion or something. Correct. Didn't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah, for me, I look at things like you started putting together your show Hall of Fame. What happens if Billy Hicks decides to put in somebody and you go, no, like, show is yours? Do you know what I mean? And I really look at that and I go, what happens when Titus does come back and says, well, show's mine, so hand it over? And what he gets back looks like, I don't know.
No, what you do is you make it an angle. Titus comes in and he goes, hey, show populace, make a decision, me or Billy.
Yeah,
and then just Civil War that shit.
But from an angle, and from an in-character standpoint, that works. But from an admin side and an out-of-character standpoint, I know that I had an image in my head of what it took to, in my mind, become a Federation X Hall of Famer. I didn't want somebody else to change what that was. I mean, when I lay that down, changing it means that it changes whether or not you earned it, Rude. It changes whether or not Faith earned it, because they changed the standards. It's no longer the Federation X Hall of Fame, so I don't want them in the one that I built. Do you know what I mean? Like, I see it from a commissioner standpoint, the real, hey, let mine be mine and let yours be yours.
I certainly get what you're saying, but you run into the problem is that you're not always going to be there, and that, I mean, eventually,
in this system, that's why it's a great opportunity for Billy Hicks to run Billy Hicks's promotion and not run Titus Fuchs' promotion. That's what we built, right? I mean, that was part of the design. So
yeah.
Okay, so before we move on, let's ask you, because I know we gave you a chance to think about this in advance. Our top 5 conversation, which we'll be having later on, is going to be about the best commissioners you played with, under, or worked with. And so, Titus, who are your top 5?
I think if I go from 5 to 1, if that's okay.
Sure.
I think Grayson would be at number 5. You would be. The only reason you're like so low is because I haven't worked with you as long. But there was times where, especially during sponsor wars, where I felt a little bit lost at times, and I'd chat to you, and suddenly, bang, I've got a new direction. I'm, motivated, and then sometimes I'd check my PMs, and you've got a message from you like telling us we're all shit and we need to improve this. And
I appreciate that. I got to tell you, one of the best things about that experience for me was your reactions to it. I sent some stuff that I was concerned would make people cry. And instead, what it made you do was go, "You're damn right we can be better. And I love that you gave me this idea, and I'm going to go do it." And for me, that was so uplifting to not get back a, "How dare you, I'm going to the corner to sulk," was awesome for me. I really appreciated that.
I mean, commissioners do sometimes need to kick up the ass, and you gave that. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons I'd put you in my top 5, definitely.
Well, thank you.
Very good. If I move on to number 4, I'd go to Cedric Caesar. He was my commissioner in NGPW, and it was just before I stopped being competitive in this game. And I don't know, he seemed to try really hard. I felt he wanted to be good, he wanted to succeed, he listened to the players. Not always doing the right thing, obviously, but I mean, he would actually listen to the players instead of just being like, "I'm the boss, you're going to do as I say."
I have a few comments about Cedric, if you don't mind, if you don't mind me interrupting you.
Oh, cool.
I was in his Fed in NGW for about a month. It was right after Rude and Acidet had their big match, and I decided to go ahead and do a face turn with Rude because I figured, well, this guy just died in his match. He's probably traumatized, just wants something different. Well, I went to NGW to do this, and when it came to Cedric, I feel like you're absolutely right in terms of how hard he tried, how he listened to his players, how he really seemed to care. He had a lot of passion.
Yeah.
The only problem, particularly with NGPW, was that I felt like he tried to cater too much and make everyone happy.
Yeah. As I said, sometimes he didn't always listen the right way. He would try to please everyone, as you said.
No, he caved to names too much for my taste. And I
felt I didn't see that much.
I felt like people exploited him a little bit.
Right. Okay. Well, I didn't see that. I don't think so. But yeah, fair point. I can see how that would have happened. Yeah.
Okay. Well, continue this. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. The third, I'd probably give to Clive Windsor, because that dude is amazing. Like, if we could have got him on board when Wrassle died, if we could have got him on board in FedEx, that would have been like a huge asset.
I think we really wanted to. I remember speaking with Clive, and he was really upfront and honest, and I really enjoyed the conversations he and I had. I think the problem was that he was the guy in the middle, especially on the EC side. And so he really needed to just be like, I can't be involved at all, and walk away. And obviously he has long roots with the guys in Wrassle. So when they decided they were going to do what they were going to do, I think it was a long shot that we would get him to come and engage and participate with us. But there's no doubt that, to a man, I think everybody who talked about it said we would really like that to have happened, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, I would compare him, his role, as I would have yours, Grayson. I would compare him to that. He was very honest. He'd tell you what he thought. He wouldn't sugarcoat anything. He'd just be like, "This is how it is. This is what I think."
Mm-hmm.
And I needed that. I do need that sometimes. Like, instead of people like trying to be nicey and political about it, fuck that. Just tell me how it is. And he did that. He was brilliant for doing that. Number 2, I'd put Jason Tippmann. As a player and as a commissioner. As a player, he seemed to really get Stoner Boy. The Wrassle incarnation of Stoner Boy is very different to what you guys have seen in FedEx.
He's not running around touching tips with people?
No, he wasn't. There's none of that.
That's because you would have been kicked out of Wrassle for doing that.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't have wanted to have censored all my posts or anything. So. But yeah, he seemed to really, really, really get me. And for a long time, I was stuck in Chain Reactions CWA, and the first month I was there, I'd won just about every title in CWA, and then suddenly Chain seemed to completely go off me. I don't know what happened, but I couldn't win the match. I couldn't win finishing rights. I couldn't, nothing. And I was a bit like, what am I doing wrong? And anyway, Tipman offered for me to go to AWA, and he had so much faith in me. Like, he was like, he'd give me advice. The advice I needed is like, yeah, you've done this wrong. And whereas Chain never did. It was like, oh, you've lost the match and that's it. Whereas he'd give me the advice and stuff. And then later, when I moved up to Show again, he was awesome as my commissioner. But then again, there's when I became a commissioner and I was his CIT at first, he gave me this huge long leash and just said, get me some activity. If you think it'll give us some activity, then go ahead, do it. I'm not going to stop you. He really helped me learn the game, and when I booked a card and stuff, he'd give me advice on what I could do better and how I could improve it and stuff, which I really liked. So yeah, I've got a lot of respect for Jason Tipman, what he's done for me in this game, like definitely.
Okay, before you go off of that, you touched briefly on Chain Reaction and your time with him, and going through a period where you just couldn't understand how he was getting the results he was getting.
Yeah.
I have a story. And it was in CWA.
Right.
And it was a match between Storm and Nighthawk. And we finished the match. It was for the, I think, the roleplay title. We finished the match, and I might even still have the MSN conversation with Eric, who played Storm, who was like, dude, that was like the most fun. It was a great match. It really helped bring me forward with Storm. You killed me, but it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for doing it. And we went back and forth, had a conversation about it. And the next day, Chain comes out with his results, and the result was Storm won. And I can tell you guys that he went to Chain and went, you're wrong. And I went to Chain and went, listen, I'm not a nitpicker, and I'm okay with Storm winning, but dude, you're wrong. And his explanation was that Storm won the match because the story we told was about Storm.
Right, okay.
And my reaction was, I have an offer in front of me to go and play in a different Fed. I'll see you later.
Man, when you said you had a Chain Reaction story, I thought you were talking about that time Nighthawk got shot.
No, I wasn't even going to go into that one, where he had Juan walk into a room, pull out a gun, shoot me in the leg, and walk out.
No. It wasn't even a regular gun. It was a musket.
Oh, that's right.
A fucking like Revolutionary War fucking musket, and he just shot you in the stomach.
It was brutal.
And you're like, man, do I have to roleplay being dead now?
Yeah, it was bad.
That's funny you should say that, because my first character, when I gave Wrassle a proper go, he just got promoted to UCE, and Chain was in there as one of his alts, TSOB or something, and I'd done some stupid storyline where I'd sent Mountain Dew up to his room for the room service in the hotel to make everyone think he was gay, and and anyway, he just walked into the room and stabbed me in the chest, and I was still new at the time, and obviously I'd had all this EFED experience where stuff like that wouldn't have happened.
Right.
So I was kind of sat there like, well, what the hell do I do now?
You'd be dead.
Yeah, I was exactly like that. I was like, well, how am I going to play now? And that was the only time I've ever interacted with Strife, like Rory Airedale, because he came in and he sort of saved it. He explained it like the knife had not actually penetrated me, and which was really cool of him. But I always thought, what a dick.
All right, we went well sideways on that. Why don't you give us your number?
That would easily be Maverick.
Excellent.
I was still playing competitively. I wanted to get better and stuff like that, and I was on a good run, I remember, and Wrestlepalooza was coming up, and the Nationals were holding like a four-way between all four regional feds, and each send a representative, and the winner would, get a promotion to the National. And CWA hadn't chosen their rep at the time, and I got a PM from Maverick saying, I've got no rep from CWA. I personally want you to take part in this match, which I was like, wow, nice one, amazing. I took part in the match, got promoted, had an awesome match with Ryan Scott, because that was part of the prize. You got a shot at the King of Karma. I had an awesome match with Ryan Scott. That's when I fell in love with him.
Pretty talented guy.
Very, very, very talented guy. I have no idea what I was, I had no business being in a match with Ryan Scott, Jesus. But I always wanted to be better for Maverick. Like, I always wanted to impress him. It was always like, I wanted to do something to make him notice me, and I was really, really motivated during that time in NGPW. And yeah, then all you guys fucked off, and it was like, oh, damn.
Yeah, that didn't work out, but that's great.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, given that you didn't mention him through the whole show, that was a surprise number one. But I'll bet you he'll be very pleased to hear that.
I hope so. It was a shame as well when he came back as Storm. I was really hoping he'd stay around, and let me, return the favour. Let me be the commissioner for him. But obviously that didn't work out.
Well, he struggles with, like a lot of guys, with his desire to play. He certainly has the time, but desire is an issue right now. And he'll be like Diggsy. Diggsy told me he would come back for me a few years ago and lasted like 3 days. This time, I think he may actually last for a couple of months, because I had nothing to do with it. I didn't know he was coming back. And I think it'll be like that for Eric. When he comes back and doesn't warn anybody and just shows up, maybe we're going to see him for a while again.
Cool.
Look, Jeff, I'm going to get him on this show, and that's one of the things I'm going to mention. Okay, I already have this planned ahead. He's getting blasted.
Hey, I have no problem with that.
Look, if my lazy ass can manage a full week in Evo X, he has no excuse.
I agree. And he's certainly capable. So it'd be awesome to however we get him back. If he decides, or if we peer beat him into it, I'm good either way. All right. Well, thanks for bringing your list with you. And
Cool.
At this point, we're going to invite Jason to kind of take the lead. He's been absolutely silent through all of this, and we'll get him to jump in and talk about maybe two of your more controversial moments. One of them took place in Wrassle, and one of them took place here in Federation X. So let's move over to that.
And with that, we'll wrap up part one. We will bring you part two in our next release of the Federation X podcast, Running on Tangents.